With us, we are moving on to another conversation entirely, and that's talking about certain legislative agenda for Oyo State House of Assembly. I know many people will have been saying, what exactly are they up to? What should we be expecting from this particular assembly? What are they going to do for us? Let me give a little bit of the background. The Speaker of the Oyo State House of Assembly, Right Honorable Adebo Ogundoyin, has said it is the plan of the Ninth Assembly to unveil its legislative agenda. According to the 32-year-old Speaker, the Ninth Assembly is ready to make significant contributions towards the development of the state through passing quality bills and formulating policies that can improve the lives of the people. And we have somebody here who will be telling us about how far they have gone, what they have been able to achieve, and the expectations from them. He is a member of the Oyo State House of Assembly, Mr. Honorable Sheyi Adisa. It's good to have you here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you.
Thank you.
Yes, let me start off this way. Looking at the bills and policies that this particular Oyo State House of Assembly intends to pass, what are the benefits on the indigene of the state itself?
I think the primary purpose of having representatives is to seek development for the people. We have been elected to bring succor to the lives of the people in different areas, education, health, infrastructure, in terms of job creation. So our job as representatives at the House of Assembly is to create laws that will enable the executive and the citizens of the state.
What are these laws? Because, for instance, we have the governor talking about educational policies where people will have to pay less bills going to school. You know, what are some of these things you're going to be doing differently from what the last assembly did? Because we know that, for instance, beyond education, even if you look at security, there was death penalty for anyone who kidnaps and have that particular person who has been kidnapped dying in the process. What are some of the new things you're bringing on the table here?
Well, the major one so far is the anti-grazing, or the open rearing law.
Okay.
And that was in response to the security issues it brought to our society. We had a lot of farmers that were killed or threatened by the headsmen. And this was something that was a topical issue, and the House of Assembly and the executive brought forward a bill, which the House has passed now, and we're waiting for implementation.
We know there are so many controversies that surrounded this particular bill, talking about the anti-grazing law, because we have the Meiti Halas, we have other people also coming to say so many things.
Yes.
So how were you able to actually balance all of this?
Well, we had what we call a public hearing. And so we gave the opportunity for different stakeholders to actually come in and tell us their thoughts. And I think it was overwhelmingly in support of having this bill passed. Yes, you would always have the other view, but we're representing the majority here, and the majority view was that our farmers need to be protected. We need to ensure that people feel safe planting, investing their time and money into their farms, and being able to get.
What are the other outstanding bills that you think have scaled through since you came to this assembly?
Well, another bill that has gone through is the investment and PPP bill. We had one in the previous administration, but the current governor has put forward another one, which we have looked at, and has also been passed by the House. And it has some additions, and again, it's to increase and encourage participation from the private sector.
Let me go back to the open grazing bill itself that you actually looked at.
Yes.
Did you look at the cost effectiveness of this bill itself in terms of the fact that now you're trying to protect indigenous farmers? What happens when you have to have some of these local cattle rearers going to a particular place to graze their cattle? Will it be free? If it's not going to be free, what will now happen to the sales of cattle, for instance, in the state? Won't it be additional cost? And we know that in the Southwest, a lot of people do parties a lot. You have functions, and you have to get cattle, for instance. What now happens? Do you look at the cost effectiveness of actually passing this bill itself?
We look at the lives of people first. You can take a socialist view, you can take a capitalist view. I think the number one aim of government is the protection of lives and property. That is the fundamental purpose of government. If you don't have that, then you have a state of anarchy. Whether you make money or not is a secondary issue. I think the primary issue is that people are being killed. There is no value to lives being lost. And you see, everything in life is always a balancing act. There will always be interests from different
But
sides.
to what extent will they be protected under this bill?
The fact is that we don't want people's cattle moving around. If you want to move them, you use cars or you use trucks, but not walking on the street. Because what happens when you have that is they're eating people's farms. Maybe in some cases, the farmers to put poison, the cows die, and then you have retaliatory attacks, then we lose lives. So what we have seen in developing countries is the need for proper movement of cattle whenever you want to move them. We're not saying don't raise cattle, no, far from that. We're saying that if you want to raise cattle, have ranches, have spaces where you can graze. You can graze in this part for this season, move to the other part again, then move them back. There are different techniques if we have the
there
will
is this belief
to do
in some
it.
quarters that most houses of assemblies are rubber stamp assemblies, where it is only what the governors want that's scaled through. What exactly is the picture of the night assembly in your state? Are you doing something vibrant, or is another rubber stamp assembly?
I don't even think any assembly will let you call them rubber stamp. You see, what we are saying here is that as long as the reason I'm there is being fulfilled, then there is a cohesion, there is a collaboration. However, when the rights of the people that we've been sent to represent is being trampled upon, then we are going to speak up and we're going to talk. And I think the relationship with the executive is cordial because we have a lot of interface, a lot of communication, and we sort of know what is coming, so we can talk it through. Some things we may feel otherwise, we'll let them know. However, if there is a situation whereby there needs to be an enforcement of the rights of the people, the House of Assembly is the closest to the people. So wherever we feel the rights of the people we're representing is not, being taken into consideration by the executive, then you say the House.
Let's also look at the economy of the state itself, and of course vis-a-vis the workers' welfare.
Yes.
What is it that the House of Assembly is looking at? Because we know that the Southwest governors came together to say that the 30,000 naira minimum wage is not visible. And of course, we heard Fayemi, for instance, who is the NGF Southwest Forum chairman, saying that it might not be visible and they might be renegotiating as the case may be. What is the role of the House of Assembly in all of this? Are you saying, as a matter of fact, that the House of Assembly will also be working with the executive to ensure that there will be renegotiation? Or what is the effect? What are you going to be looking at in terms of welfare of workers in the state itself?
Well, we don't have access to the accounts of the state. We don't have access to what the state makes. Technically, we do those audits on a yearly basis. The executive is the one that has the prerogative to negotiate these things or talk about.
You don't check. There's no principle of checks and balances.
There is a committee on public accounts. We need to, if you like, wait for the auditor's reports to be able to audit the accounts of the executive. So there is a check and balance, but we don't have a day-to-day report on what the exact finances of the state are. These are some.
Is that supposed to be healthy?
No,
when
these are some of the things where technology, and I think you're spot on in that regard, where technology will help us. At this stage, the accounts of the states, particularly the state that we're governing, should be something that is easily accessible, and technology can help us do that. At this stage, that isn't the case.
Another issue I would like us to look at is the issue of constituency projects.
Yes.
We know that at the National Assembly, the State Houses of Assembly, we have constituency projects.
Yes.
And there have been these controversies that most of the time these monies go down the drain. Is it that lawmakers don't embark on this project, or there is no accountability or proper monitoring?
Well, you see, first of all, lawmakers, the reason my understanding, the reason why constituency projects started coming up is because the people were demanding more from lawmakers. Lawmakers' role is making laws, doing oversight. That's where it stops. But we have in our communities people expecting us to do borehole and to do other things rather than just make laws. That was where that creation came into being. Ideally, lawmakers, that's not what we're meant for. We're supposed to make laws. However, over the years, this has become something that has been, put into the budget for lawmakers to have their way. The idea for me is, I run the developmental politics. I'm into, showing people, not just talking. And that is the sort of politics I believe this Ninth Assembly is trying to run. We haven't had access to constituency allowances, but I'm sure with the colleagues I have that when we do, you would see, the people will feel the impact of it.
Let's look at departments and ministries of the states, talking about ministries and departments of government itself. The issue of unspent budget of some of these ministries and, of course, departments of government has been an issue in the front burner for a very long time. What is the Ninth Assembly, your assembly, is going to be doing in terms of some of these unspent budgets, and how can you also track some of the instances where civil servants have been accused over the years of actually playing a very funny role when it comes to finances of the ministries? Sometimes you head some of these ministries in terms of committees and the rest of it. What are you doing in terms of tracking the excesses and, of course, the unspent budget that comes from some of these ministries itself?
Well, first of all, budgets are estimates. They don't have to all, when you have an estimate, this is what you estimate to do. But there is a funding aspect to it. Does the state make enough funds to be able to fund these estimates? You have an ideal situation whereby I want to do 10 things and it's going to cost me 10 naira. The question we need to ask is, how do we fund that budget so that we can do those 10 things? So sometimes you have situations whereby things are not done, not necessarily because they don't want to be done, but sometimes there are no funding for it. You see, government, a lot of expectation is on government. But the honest truth is that government itself is looking for money. We need, when you talk about taxes, when you talk about things like that, they are not very high in this part of the world. And so, when in the light of estimates, we need to look at it holistically. Is it funded? Is the budget funded for it to be able to achieve? In terms of tracking, again, I mentioned technology. These are some of the innovations you should expect to see from the Ninth Assembly, using technology to be able to monitor. These are things that we've gone past passing paper around. The last
is your state ripe for that?
Absolutely.
What are some of these instances that gives us the assurance that your state is ripe in terms of technological advancement? Also looking at the economy of the states, how viable can you compare the states to Lagos State, for instance, even though the proximity is very close? What are the impediments?
I think it is very possible. If you use technology, a lot of these things are straightforward. Before the last administration ended, I know they embarked on e-governance, and that is the need for us to, if you like, reduce the paper level and be able to, you can, from your computer or your iPad, open and see things. And if you have projects, you should be able to see the project levels. You should be able to see, what the issues are. You should be able to see, is it a funding issue? These are the things that technology will help us
now
achieve.
that you mentioned the last administration, this administration has promised to break more grants than what we previously had. So what are the expectations? What are those things in the
more grants?
As in, do more things. More than
every administration, promises to do more things, naturally. Government is a continuum. The last administration has put Oyo State on, a better level than they met it. And it's the hope of everybody that we in this administration too will do more than we currently met.
But what's your take on cost of governance? Because legislature, if you look at it, has been accused over the years, because somehow you make the laws, that you have not actually looked at the pace of cost of governance. And this starts from even the federal assemblies here, that the money is given to them for seating allowances, for nays and the yays, is just too much compared to what an average worker takes home. And they've been arguing in several quarters that this should be cut down, it should be leveled down, there should be grading in terms of what lawmakers should receive, and they should look at the cost of governance and try to do something about the overhead cost. What is your take on this?
Well, I'm a believer in value for money. So when something is expensive if you are not getting value for it, and I believe sincerely that what people should be asking every time is, I gave you 10 naira, did I get value of 10 naira for it?
What is that supposed to mean?
So what I mean is this.
Even if the person does not deserve to get the money.
No.
But because there's value attached to it.
We need to, yes, value is money. You need to understand that our salaries, allowances, I don't speak for the National Assembly. I know the difference in the state and national is, the difference is high. But there is an organization, an agency of government called the Revenue Mobilization Agency and Fund Allocation Agency. They are an agency that looks into these things.
But who gives this agencies a go-ahead? Who creates the law? Who creates
It's a federal agency.
Okay.
It has commissioners, and it's the president that appoints people into the agency, and it does all of that. But again, I don't like talking about things I don't control. I don't control RAMFAC. I don't do much with them. What I always tell people is that if you're giving 10 naira of taxpayers' money, what Nigerians must be looking for is, are these people giving value to that?
So how do Nigerians, how will they get value for actually what?
You see, Nigerians, we need to get more involved. There is this mindset of, we don't do politics, as if politics is for people that are castaways. The fact is that, politics is what controls our society. And we need to get more involved. We need to lobby our lawmakers. We need to speak to them. We need to engage them. We need to hold them accountable.
Are they easily accessible?
Absolutely. You have the House of Assembly. You can walk in. In my place, have my constituency office, which I go to every week. And I use that opportunity to listen to my people and understand their needs, and obviously able to represent them better that way.
Because there are always these concerns that after they've voted for them, oftentimes you don't get to see them again.
Well, you see, again, I don't speak for everybody. I can speak for myself. I came into politics for development, and throughout my campaign in education, in health, in infrastructure, in sports development, in job creation, we have been walking the talk. And even after I have been in, I've held sports competitions, I've given access to finance, 2.5 million, and we've done so many things. We believe in development. The purpose of politics is to bring development. In fact, politics should be synonymous to development. And so if people don't get that, then they need to ask their lawmakers. The people of Afiju, where I represent, they are getting what we are doing.
But really, how independent is the legislature? Because you're one of the three arm of government.
Yes.
And over time, it's very difficult in the federal structure that we operate in Nigeria to indicate that the judiciary, for instance, is independent, the legislature is independent because of some of the instances that we have seen.
Yes.
How independent is the legislature here?
There is no independence, to be totally honest, if there is no real financial autonomy. That is where the real, in any situation where and that is why there's been a lot of clamor for financial autonomy.
What does that mean? Under the Constitution, don't the legislature
what
have...
it means is that in paper there is independence, but the executive clearly is the strongest arm because it controls the finances of the state. The judiciary has obviously cut itself first, because once money comes, it goes straight. And that's what the legislative too is trying to do now, to get its own autonomy. So when the federal allocations are coming, the legislators' funds go separately. They don't have to resort to the governor to get things done.
What are the implications of that?
What are the implications? It means that you have if you're financially independent, then you don't have to worry about not being able to get some things that you naturally are entitled to. But because you have to go back to the executive.
But does that give excuses for sometimes budget padding, as the case may be? There's certain instances of that. Because you want to get enough money,
you see,
for instance.
I want to always, we should be careful about using that word padding. It means something totally different from what a lot of people think.
Okay.
When the legislative's power is really during budgeting. Because when the executive bring a budget, the legislator has the power to return budgets, to make sure that it represents the wishes, if you like, or that the wishes of the people are also put in place.
So you think it's misconstrued?
The wishes of the word padding, because when we talk about padding, it's an intentional ploy to, if you like, add into what was not there. So
existing
yes. So when you pad a budget, I see the word, use that. There is no need for padding if you know your job as a legislator. You go and you speak to the executive. We want these things in these areas. We represent the people. We know the needs of the people. When you're doing education, look at these schools. These schools need the feel of government. They need the touch of government. So there is no need for padding, really. You just want to make sure that when the executive are bringing the budget, there is a good feel for the people you
I
represent.
think there's this clamor for youth inclusion in politics,
Yes.
and I see this assembly has a lot of youth.
Absolutely.
So what benefits would actually add, what value will it add to the Ninth Assembly?
Well, it brings a lot of creativity and innovation. The young people are naturally known to bring a lot of innovation. I talked about technology. Sometimes one of the issues we've had is that some of the people that would use the technology are sometimes advanced in age, so are not as conversant with it. When you have a younger assembly, technology is easier to thrive in that system. So I think people should expect a more responsive, a more adaptive assembly, and I think over the last 5 months we've shown that we've willing to work long hours, willing to do so many things. So I believe sincerely that in the Ninth Assembly, people would see a lot of creativity and innovation because we have a lot of young.
Let's look at money politics itself. Can we take away politics of Nigeria from money itself? We see what happened elsewhere in the world. For instance, there's an inquiry going on in the US, and it's been done by members of the Congress. How would we see this happen in Nigeria, for instance? Would it ever happen? Looking at the instances of the facts that money appears to play volume when it comes to Nigerian politics, how do we deviate from that? Is that going to be possible?
You see, the people that contest election didn't come from a different country. They came from amongst us.
Are they the best of the people we expect,
it
for
depends
instance?
on how they are presented. What I'm trying to say to you is that we are living in a society whereby we create the people that we are. So when we're talking about a change, it's a national change. We need an orientation in that regard. A lawmaker or an elected person that gives money is because he knows it will be collected. If it's not going to be collected, they won't give it. So this is a societal issue. And when people say, money going in, it is the society. I believe that we should move away from money politics to real based issues. When somebody wants to represent you, you should ask questions. What have they done before?
How do we move away in the face of poverty?
In the face of poverty, well, that's the real issue, because one of the things government is trying to do and should always do is create an environment, create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. That is the purpose of government. And the more we do it, the more we move away from the poverty line. If you have a thriving middle class, a strong middle class, they'll tell you, take your money away. We want to know what you do in this area and in this area. They hold people more accountable because they are not controlled by, if you like, the change that comes sometimes.
But is that not even myopic? Let's go to the party structure itself. To get a ticket, to get a form, looking at the volumes of money you have to pay, doesn't it start from there? Even from the political party itself, is it accessible for someone who is just a normal worker in Nigeria to say, because I have the credibility and I want to represent a particular constituency in your state? Is it that easy? Looking at the party structure.
Yes, I think so. I've seen people that their communities brought them forward. I've seen people that
who paid for them too.
Yes, absolutely. And I've seen people that their followers paid for their forms.
Should it be the case?
I don't speak for parties. I don't know the criteria for getting certain funds. What I do know is that in my party, there was a time we gave women free. They gave young people free. That was to encourage more of such candidates coming forward. So the forms were free for them to get.
But did it achieve the desired results?
Yes, we had more young people, absolutely. And
well,
we had
what
more
about
women.
females?
And women as well. Yes, we did. So you have some of those things in parties to encourage more people. These are things that parties to use to run. And a party is a platform. Parties too have to do campaigns. They too have to do several things. They have to engage the media.
So do we begin to look at independent candidature if that isn't working? For instance, do we begin to look at the fact that you don't need to belong to any political party and actually coming up to be an independent candidate?
I think it's something INEC should look at, to be honest. I think, again, my view is that let's move away from these things to real causes. Ideologies. Let's move away from, is this party or is that party? What does it stand for? What has he done? What is his track record? What is he going to achieve? I think that's where we need to go to as a country. You can't give what you don't have. So you need to start to look at the people that want to lead you. What are they bringing to the table for us to get the results we want?
Does the people have that voice to actually ask questions?
No, they do.
Because
The question is, do they utilize their voice?
With some
in a
ideologies of
situation
stomach
whereby
infrastructure.
politicians cross carpet from one party to another, and they are presented. It is who they present to the people that the people will select.
No, you see, there's a process of primaries. These people don't just come out. Parties have primaries, and in those primaries, usually there's a process of nominating your candidates. Yes, sometimes, and that's where a lot of crises come in, where a candidate doesn't win his primaries and so decides to go to another party. You see a lot of that. But parties too have systems, they have constitutions, they have ethics, they have discipline. A lot of these things, I can speak for my party, I don't know about other parties, but I know that we have a constitution, there is discipline, there are modes, there are operations, there are systems, there are rules. All of these things, if you are not using, I can only speak for my party. Let me not
But
say more
if
than
you
that.
look at, you have talked about people asking questions, and
Yes.
people who are of credible standard
Yes.
actually standing for elections and
Absolutely.
winning. But then if you look at instances where people come with the ideology of stomach infrastructure, given the fact that they know that people are impoverished and buying into that kind of ideology, how can the people ask questions in that instance? We saw what happened at the last elections, where people were willing to sell their voters card. People were giving minimal monies to vote. When you have instances like that, where will the question come from?
Again, let me give you an example of myself. I started politics of development, and so what I wanted to show people was that, look, if you give me your vote, this is what you should expect. When it got to education, I was giving school bags, uniform, exercise book, textbooks. When it got to health, I did free health missions. I did, we renovated hospital or a primary health center. When it got to youth empowerment, we got 100 youth, we engaged them. So for me, what people saw was that this guy is going to, is a developmental politician.
It's like we
And
should go
so-
on and on, but because of time, we have to wrap up now. Thank you so much, Honorable Sheyarisa,
Thank
for
you
coming
for
on here
having
in Cafe.
me.
We
Thank
quite
you for
appreciate
having me.
you.
Thank you so much
He's
for
a
being
member
here.
of your State House of Assembly, and this is why we're wrapping it up this morning from Ibadan Studios. Till tomorrow, I am Anu Akomolafe.
And we'll now join our Lagos studio for more details on what is happening in the national dailies itself. My name is Bola Bofimo Skol. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.